Oh, hi. I didn't see you there. I was so busy enjoying my chronic tacos iced tea. What's up, sweaties? It's episode 105 of Collider Heroes. I'm Jon Schnepp. We're going to talk about the world of heroes and villains. And with me, I got a superstar panel. Starting over here in the corner, we got Robert Meyer Burnett.
Hello there. And I was just pondering, you know, Hot Toys has made a Schwarzenegger Predator figure. They've done Terminator figures. Why is there no Hot Toys Conan the Barbarian?
That is
It would be the best of the Arnold figures.
You get it,
It
wouldn't
would
you?
be. Oh, I totally would. Yeah,
Now,
I
which,
would get that.
Would it just be the straight up normal version, or would he do one with the camouflage?
Well,
'Cause
you'd
I
have
want
to have
the
multiples.
camouflage, yeah.
You'd have to have maybe a two-pack, kind of like they did Besman Luke.
Just,
Oh, yeah.
2 or 3 heads. That's all.
That's
Just put
true,
2 or 3
too,
heads.
but it's
in
a
there.
different-
You know who else has 2 or 3 heads right now? John Campea. What's up, man?
Hey guys, back from Orlando. It's so good to be back here with you guys.
Yes, that's right. And also from Orlando, back from Orlando is Jeremy Jahns.
Back from Orlando and pondering the best Arnold hot toy, which might be, for right now, the Terminator 2 battle damaged Arnold. I like that one a lot. What can I say?
It's great.
Well, there's a lot of Arnold stuff happening. Not in our news today, but hopefully we will see some Conan stuff eventually. You know what we're going to talk about before we get into the news? Let's show some of the fan art that's been popping off. Brett Landrenau did this incredible pop figures of all of us, which are great. I think they're fantastic. I would own these if they
Those are
existed in
cool. Yeah, those
reality.
look
They're
really
very
cool.
fun, very colorful designs. I think it's a conglomerate of some of the other fan art they took kind of the best of, and I would like to see all 9 of those figures on my shelf someday.
They make those for everything. Why can't they actually make these?
I know, right? Pop figures, get
just-
on it. You're missing out on some. I think we would sell at least 9 of them.
At least.
At the very least, 9 of them. You know what? Jeremy
Yo.
was at the heads of our 200th anniversary, and he left because we had to make some space for Amy. But what was his special secret figure? Well, Chantet Sima has decided
Boom.
that, yes,
The
he
Glue
is
Master.
going to be the Glue Master, because we came up with a bunch of different names for you. The alternate version of Paste Pot Pete's villain,
Yes.
the Glue Master. You are the hero version to the villain of Paste Pot Pete. So
A reference to the fact that for some unknown reason his hands are usually sticky.
So
Only Campea knows why. I know why for real. And it's funny when I hold a blaster in the arcade. I think I have my pinky out like that. That person know I do that. Other than
awesome.
putting glue on my hands and peeling it off, because that's always fun to think you're a lizard.
Well, I like that you have your hands out like that, because the next picture is from Betsy Nichols, and she's drawn me
Boom.
from my little cameo in the series from Adult Swim that I produced and directed, Metalocalypse. I actually was a character in it and got murdered violently, which was amazing. So there's a cool drawing. So thank you all for doing such great art. We're going to have some more interesting announcements about the Colliders and their adventures coming soon. But until then, let's get into the news. Let's talk about news number 1. That's right, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. There was a screening last night, and James Gunn yesterday has officially said he is now on to write and direct Volume 3. An advanced screening of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 happened last night. A few lucky people got to go see it. We have had a few more incredible trailers drop, including some moving posters online, showing even more from the film. Also, James Gunn let it be known that he's indeed going to be writing and directing the 3rd movie in this trilogy, titled, obviously, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Now, what do we think about Gunn staying on to do the Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3? And for those of us who saw it, we can't actually talk about it, so unfortunately we're going to have to wait until next week to actually be able to tell you some of our reactions, our, review of the film. But, as far as just a reaction to the film, I really liked it. John, how about you?
I want to save my reaction for the trailer itself, or for the actual review itself. But it's always exciting when you get to go see a new MCU movie.
That's right. Jeremy?
I'm with John. I'm like, I saw it. That's what you get. Don't know what to say.
That is a reaction, however you want to.
The embargo lifts on Monday, by the
Right.
way. That's when the embargo
so
lifts.
We'll only
So-
tease everybody until Monday.
We've been said we could do this.
Right. Hey, that's
So
my
there you go.
picture post right there. Like 90%
was it?
of
Like, yeah.
pictures, that's me going.
So there we go. And Robert, we're going to see it later this week.
Yeah,
but-
I didn't see it.
Well, what are your thoughts about James Gunn saying, "Look, before the movie even comes out, he's attaching himself to the 3rd one to write and direct it."
Well, I've known James for a long time, and we actually worked on a movie together that he wrote called The Specials.
Awesome.
And I'm a fan of an independent filmmaker like James Gunn, who he was in the trenches for a long time. And this was his big breakthrough success with Guardians. He did Slither, and then he did Super, and Kevin Feige gave him a giant franchise movie to direct, and that's sort of everyone's dream. But I think that he's really done a great job with that transition. I mean, obviously I haven't seen the second film, but I love the first Guardians of the Galaxy. I thought it was great, and I think he was hired to bring a certain sensibility that only he has, and I think the Guardians films as they exist now are very much his sensibility, good or bad. I haven't seen the second one,
Right.
But it's great that they have the faith in him to give him a third.
John, how about you? What do you think?
I'm more cautious about it, and it's not because of Gunn. I mentioned this on Movie Talk earlier today. I am a huge James Gunn fan. Like you mentioned, Super Slither. They're both insanely good, fun, entertaining movies. My caution comes back to what I talk about quite a bit. I don't necessarily like it when a director stays on one property for too long, because I believe it kind of starts to sap their creativity a little bit. I like to see filmmakers like James Gunn doing new projects. Plus, I think it's good for a franchise once in a while to bring in new blood. Like, even if you look at the great Christopher Nolan, right? Even people who love the third Batman film, most people will acknowledge that it was probably the weakest. Look at a director like Sam Raimi. Spider-Man 1, Spider-Man 2, by the time he got to 3, he was repeating motifs over and over again. And Venom was the least of the problems, actually, of that movie. You look at the Wachowski siblings, right? They have the Matrix thing, and it got progressively worse, even though they're really creative, dynamic thinkers. I just think there's something about creative guys like Gunn needing to stay fresh and keep doing that new stuff that he likes to do. So, hey, look, he's directing Guardians Volume 3, so I'm going to be there with bells on. I just would have preferred to hear about a brand new original James Gunn film and maybe another director coming in to do Guardians 3, but we'll see how it works out.
Jeremy?
Yeah, it worked out best for Nolan, but yeah, like you were saying, Nolan had that buffer. In between every Batman movie, he did a passion project.
Yes.
And then Batman movie, passion project. So it kept his mind fresh, I think. And I agree, 90% of directors by the time the trilogy rolls around to wrap up, they're like, okay, let's get this thing done so I can go back to having a life, you know? So you see them starting to lose inspiration. It's not a definite, James Gunn can stay on for 3 movies, great. Any more than that, I will absolutely advocate he should probably step off and do something else. So I think he has the potential, it looks like he's having fun with these movies, to stay on for a trilogy. More than a trilogy, I'll get a little concerned. But if he wants to finish off his trilogy, I say we see what he's got. If it's his call, great. If it's a studio holding a gun to his head going, no, you have to do a trilogy, then I'll be like, oh, well, we're just set up to fail. I agree with Spider-Man 3, though. That is the go-to scenario where it's like, that's why a director should not stay on for 3 movies.
Well, I mean, we also, Joss Whedon, when he did Avengers 3.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. Wait, he didn't do Avengers 3 because Avengers 2 burned him out.
Yeah,
It was
well,
like
the
he
first Avengers
got
burned him
ground up.
out.
Yeah.
And like I remember we talked about it when they said he was coming back for Avengers 2. We had just finished doing the press stuff with him, so I had spent a couple of days with Josh, and it's like, that dude was a walking corpse after the first Avengers.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, so when they said he was going to do the second one, it's like, Avengers, my all-time favorite comic book movie, but and yay, Josh is doing it, but I wonder if this is good. And we saw that, Ultron, which I still think was a good movie, was not as good as the first one. And we just see a lot of patterns. It's a very rare exception where you don't see the pattern do this with that. Every once in a while, there are exceptions. It makes me a little nervous.
Well, I got to say, I got a chance to be on set when the Avengers Age of
Right.
Ultron was happening, and we watched him limping around like a beaten man. Like, literally, it was like he was like in the middle of the shoot, and he was already had a injury, and it was like, I mean, he definitely pushes himself, but that's why it's kind of cool to see the Russo brothers. They're tag teaming, and you get a refreshing, re-energizing energy when you have 2 brothers or 2 people directing. I think you see a little back and forth that's there, that when someone else is getting a little tired or beaten down, be like, why don't you sit down? I got this, So I don't know. I mean, I think James Gunn is incredibly talented. Romeo and Juliet. I mean, from the very beginning, you saw that kind of talent. I think he brings that to everything he does. I think Volume 2 also has that kind of talent. I want to see what he does with Volume 3. I'm looking forward to seeing him finish off the trilogy and not hand it off to somebody else, because I think his voice comes through in every single one of these movies. So.
He did something that I was so vehemently opposed to, which was the Zack Snyder's remake of Dawn of the Dead. Dawn of the Dead, which James Gunn wrote.
He wrote it, yeah.
And Dawn of the Dead is one of my favorite horror films of all time. The original Romero, 79 version. And I was primed to hate this film. I was so angry about it. I'm like, why are you doing this to a movie I've seen 100 times? He won me over. That movie won me over in 5. The opening scene.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, with the girl and her husband turning the little girl. I'm in.
It's a great remake.
It is a great remake.
Yeah.
It's one of the best. It's up there with Philip Kaufman's Invasion of the Body
yeah.
Snatchers, The Thing, and The Fly.
So many people never mention Dawn of the Dead as part of Zack Snyder's filmmaking career. It's I believe it's his first feature film, and he killed it. It's an incredible film. So if you haven't seen that, I know it's not superhero related, check out some of that horror, Dawn of the Dead, and then you might understand Justice League a little bit better. What a weird segue. Guess what? Let's go on to number 2. We got Josh Brolin is Cable in Deadpool 2. That's right. I know the news came out a couple days ago, but we're going to cover it. The year 2019 is the 80th. Oh, sorry, that's wrong information. Josh Brolin has got announced that he is going to be playing Cable. Let's get right into it. What are your thoughts about it, Jeremy?
My thoughts are, I think he'll be a great Cable. I think there is a huge opportunity for Deadpool to make a reference of Thanos somehow. Like, he's got to, like, look at Cable and be like, where's your glove? Oh, yeah, wrong franchise. Or is it? It's something. You know, I feel like this guy is Cable and Thanos in a movie that breaks the fourth wall. There's got to be something referenced in there. I think he'll do a great job. This dude is a great actor. His name was thrown out there, and I was like, he can't. He's already doing that other thing. Apparently, he can. So that's cool. I think it's a good call.
John?
I like the casting. I certainly like it a hell of a lot more than a lot of the other names that have been coming up recently. No offense to the Friday Night Lights Bloodlines guy and whoever that other dude was. I can't remember the second guy
Pierce
they said.
Brosnan?
No, it wasn't Pierce Brosnan.
Stephen Lang. They had.
Well, see, Lang is the one guy that he was my fanboy choice. I would have loved to have seen Stephen. I think Stephen Lang was genetically, constructed and was born to play Cable. I really do. But, if it's not going to be that, Josh Brolin's a really solid pick. He's a very talented actor. He can bring that type of physicality to it as well, which is great. I don't think there's any worries about the Thanos thing because it's a CGI character that you're going to see in that stuff. So, look, this is one of those situations where I think there were probably 10, 15, 20 really great actors who would have been good fits for this. There was no one clear choice, but I think Brolin is one of those guys that's going to fill it out really nicely. I think it's a smart choice. I think it's going to pay off.
Robert?
Well, I love the casting, but I also see it as an opportunity. You now have the villain of the next Avengers movie going in and doing an X-Men movie over at Fox. Mm-hmm. I mean, you think someone didn't have a conversation about that? You think that Josh Brolin didn't make that call to Kevin Feige and go, hey, buddy, I know I'm playing Thanos, but they want me to play Cable. Maybe there's an opportunity for some synergy. Maybe we'll get to see more crossover with Fox and MCU.
Nah, we've seen it happen before. I mean, Fox, this isn't the first time a Fox significant character has also been a Marvel significant character. I mean, we don't have to look any further than Captain America himself.
I know.
With Chris Evans was one of the other different studios. You cannot sign exclusivity from other studios, so I wouldn't read too much into it.
I don't know. Maybe.
Well, I mean, look at it this way. Josh Brolin's going to be in Deadpool 2, and he's going to be in X-Force, and he might even have his own standalone Cable film. I think they must have done camera tests with him and Ryan Reynolds doing some back and forth.
Oh, I'm sure.
So, I mean, they realized there's some kind of chemistry there that maybe David Harbour and some of these other actors who were up for the role just didn't have or couldn't compete with Brolin because obviously that came out of left field. Remember, it was Brolin? You mean Thanos? What? It's a very...
Jonah Hex?
Yeah, then you think about it, you're like, exactly, Jonah Hex.
A DC... Yeah. So
we had all forgotten. We had all forgotten until
it's
you
like,
just said that.
Suddenly he's got more comic book characters on his resume than any other
That
actor.
was a good question. Will Brolin... Okay, we know Evans is 2. We know Idris Elba has done a couple, but will Brolin be the first guy to play 3 characters in either the DC or Marvel universes? Because you're right, the Jonah Hex thing is really observant because this will make the 3rd comic book character that he's played.
Right.
I have to give some thought. Actually, you guys would probably know at home. Just drop in the comment section what other actors might fall into that, like minimum 3 characters in comic book movies.
Yeah. Well, now we know Brolin's one of them. I wouldn't count Men in Black 3 as a comic book
I wouldn't count
movie,
it either.
even though it's based off a comic book, so technically it is a comic book.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
based off Men in
yeah,
Black,
But
the comic book series.
not like a superhero, the traditional superhero DC Marvel stuff. But then again, is Jonah Hex the traditional one either? I guess you can make an argument for that.
Well,
he was...
he's yes.
Yeah, there's
He's
been
a
a
comic
few...
He was in the
Jonah Hex.
CW show, so he's clearly crosses
Yeah.
over. Yeah.
All right, let's move on. We got number 3. We got Watchmen is getting an R-rated animated adaptation. Finally, news broke that Warner Brothers Animation is moving forward with an R-rated animated adaptation of the seminal graphic novel by Alan Moore and Dave Gibbons. Now, they've done a kind of Mation version using the art from the book and kind of sliding it around with an old man narrating it, which I hated. And then we also have Zack Snyder's epic live-action version, which was also rated R. Do we need or want to have an animated version of Watchmen? Who's calling for this, and is it a good idea? Let's start with you, Jeremy.
I don't feel we need... I feel like Zack Snyder's Watchmen was as close to the graphic novel as we were going to get, so I feel like it's going to be a rehash. It's not like you have Age of Ultron, the live-action movie, and then you're doing an animated Age of Ultron that's going to be a completely different angle. Unless they take Watchmen and this completely different angle for this animated feature, which they also shouldn't do, I don't feel it's necessary, and I don't even know if I want it. So yeah, I just don't. I'm not excited for this. I'd rather watch Watchmen again, which I haven't reviewed yet, which I keep getting requests for one day.
Ooh, you haven't reviewed the Zack Snyder one?
Yeah, I haven't reviewed
You
the
should
Zack Snyder
review
one.
the Zack Snyder Ultimate Edition.
Yeah,
That would be
on
cool.
4K.
Yeah.
Like, there's like 3 different versions
Yeah,
of it out
do
there.
the fucking like 4.5 hour version. That's the one I would be like. No one really even talks about that where they incorporated the weird Black Freighter animation.
Yeah, I was gonna say this is one thing that they can do is they can incorporate the Black Freighter thing in here, sure, but yeah, I mean that's the one difference I can think for this animated version of the
What do you think,
live
John?
action.
Well, I think Warner Brothers Animation has recently taken a swing at the bat of making an R-rated animated film based on a beloved comic book, and it was a bag of shit. That whole Killing Joke thing they did was just an utter flat disappointment. Now they've got this Justice League Dark thing coming, and that also looks like a complete bag of shit. I have no enthusiasm for this whatsoever. Look, I'm totally prepared to watch it and be pleasantly surprised. But I'm just not impressed at all with the stuff that they've been giving it. Plus, I think this is one of those things where it's like, I'm all for reincarnating, different properties and stuff like that all the time. Remakes is great. I just feel like we're so close to when that Watchmen film was done. And it was. I don't know how you get any closer to the graphic novel than what that was done. So I don't, at this point, I don't feel a lot of hope for this.
Honestly, like for myself, giant fan of the book. I've probably read it 100 times. Since me and Robert were talking about how we waited a whole year in between like 2 issues when it was coming out, when it was actually a comic book. You sweaties probably all bought it as a graphic novel. We had to wait issue by issue to read this thing. That's how old we are. But anyway, check it out. An R-rated version that's animated, done this way, I would love to see, personally, just because having read it, I would like to see it adapted perfectly. I don't want to see someone rewrite Alan Moore's words. I want to see Alan Moore's words come to life via animation. And if they're going to do that, then I'm 100% in. I want to see the artists at the island. I want to see all the little details that are only in the comic book so far and have never translated into the big screen or in any version so far. So if they're actually going to do that, then I'm into it. Otherwise, I feel like we've already kind of done that with the Slideomation version and the Zack Snyder version, and just being to straight up read the comic, which is what you should be doing in the first place. Robert, what are your thoughts on the R-rated animated Watchmen?
Well, I don't want to see a 2-hour version of this. No. I mean, they talked about doing it as an HBO miniseries.
Right.
We've heard that in recent months, and I would like to see. A 12-episode miniseries that does the comic proudly. I mean, like you, I've read the comic countless times, and it's one of my favorite things I've ever read, actually. But this animated film, do we need it? Like, that's the thing. I'm like, why? What can you bring to it that's new? By the way, I did like Justice League Dark.
Oh, did you?
I thought it was good.
Okay.
And I can't wait to get Judas Contract. I can't wait to see that because it's one of my favorite comic stories of all time. And that comes
By
out,
Marv Wolfman and
that comes
George
out
Perez.
today.
Yeah.
Comes out today.
I am very excited to see Judas Contract as well. A good friend of mine, Chase Conley, was a storyboard animation director on it. And so everything I saw so far up until before it was animated looks fantastic. It's the story of Tara. Get in on that sweat. But didn't see Justice League Dark yet. I just have issues where they have to cram Batman into everything, and I know it's because of sales. Because unfortunately, if Batman's not in it, people are not buying it, and because that's what they're just reacting to what everyone out there is doing. If you're not buying something that Batman's not in, then they're like, well, we better chuck Batman in there. That's why Batman is in Justice League Dark. So, it's a reaction.
I cannot wait to have Batman on the cover of Watchmen, the animation, just to see what you do.
Oh my
just
God.
to see your reaction
You don't
here
even
on
know.
Collider
Great.
Heroes.
Oh, that'll never happen. Mark my words.
You just condemned it now.
No.
You just totally jinxed it by
DC
saying
would just
that.
not be that stupid to do something like that. They know that Watchmen can stand on
Sure.
its own. So I know they wouldn't chuck Batman in there. Besides, they already got Batman. His name is Night Owl. They have a version of him. So anyway, let's move on to the fourth subject today, which is Michael McElhatton. I can't get his name right. McElhatton, I believe, reveals the beginning of Justice League. So the Game of Thrones actor reveals that he plays a role in the very beginning of the Justice League film, and that the sequence that he's in is very dark. It's filled with a lot of warring factions, but then there is a lot of humor in it later. So we were talking about this earlier on Movie Talk. There's some light, there's some dark. We don't really know what he's saying. So what do you think of the sequence, John? Let's start with you.
Well, it's salty and it's sweet, and it's meaty, but it's vegan. Like it sounds like a bad sales job. Look, I think that we mentioned this on Movie Talk a little bit earlier too. Is that it sounds to me when you listen to his full description that they're not going to waste any time in this film, and I love that. Dive right in, set the premise for the film as a whole, and then let the film start to progress from there. And it sounds like that's what they're going to do. It sounds like they're not going to waste 15 minutes of seeing characters just, this is them since Batman versus Superman, and then start. No, it sounds like, boom, they're going to start this thing, and that's the way to do it. I'm still a little bit concerned about all this talk about tone, and it's going to be dark, but it's going to be humorous. It's just, you know what? Just stop talking about that stuff. Just tell us about the meat, tell us about the story, and then let us see it and experience it. But it sounds like they're on the right track.
Jeremy?
Yeah, what was, I mean, maybe I'm ignorant here. What was his description of it other than that? Or was he
he was just saying he had a great time doing it. I mean, it takes place in the past. He didn't really give too much information about it. He didn't say what character he's playing.
There's a lot more humor in it, but it's also very dark.
Yeah,
right?
that is a weird sales pitch that people do, because like every comic book movie, generally speaking, most movies will have humor in it, you know, because people get humorous when things are going down. Like, I mean, it's just in times of darkness, there's always someone like me out there like, hey, I'm going to tweet this because it's funny. You know what I mean? So, I mean, people deflect with humor. It's just the way human beings are. So, I mean, if you look at the Tim Burton Batman had humor in it, but it was never some weird selling point, you know? So I would rather than being like it's humorous and dark and have it look like it's a clash of worlds, just make a movie that works. And if it has humor in it, great. If it's super dark, great. If it has both, great. But just make it all mesh together. It's interesting that this one sounds like it's starting right out, kind of like the beginning of Batman versus Superman, where it's like, oh, it's kind of the end of Man of Steel that we're watching, and it ties into the next one. I mean, I just hope the movie's good. Like, I just want it to be good. It's Justice League, for God's sakes. It's not like we're making what I can't even think of, where the red fern grows or something like that. It's Justice League.
Wow,
Please
where'd you come up with that one?
Because you saw my brain doing this, like think of something abstract. Bam, and I caught that.
There's a lot riding on this. You're right. It's Justice League, so we want it to be good. I think let's not misconstrue his statements. I don't think he was saying it's light and dark in the same breath. He was saying the sequence that he's in is very dark, but the rest of the movie is very light and has humor and jokes, but the scene that he's in is very filled with violence and there's war and this and that.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of where he was coming from. He wasn't
I
saying,
hope so.
Yeah, I don't think he was saying like, I cut a joke and then I cut off somebody's head. You know, I think it was more like they're establishing the grim nature of what the Justice League has to fight. So I believe that, you know, we've all seen the trailers. They're establishing these mother boxes and how they came to Earth, you know, hundreds and hundreds, maybe thousands of years ago, and the ramifications of what those things actually mean now in the world that Batman and Wonder Woman are in. So, Robert?
Well, the idea that we're going to see a battle between the Atlanteans, the Amazonians, humans, and parademons, and apocalypse, I'm like, this delights me to no end. I'm just thinking to myself, talk about sweaty, talk about deep cuts, talk about going into DC mythology. I mean, what is not to love about that? And I think you only have to go as far back as Peter Jackson's The Intro of Lord of the Rings, which has one of the great introductory sequences when Galadriel is narrating it and you see who Sauron is and you
see him in his armor.
You see him in his armor, and which he never appeared in armor in the books. You
And
know,
Isildur?
Isildur, you know,
right.
and Isildur's heir. I mean, that tells you everything you need to know. Plus, it's the most badass. Who doesn't want to watch the rest of those movies after you watch that opening sequence?
Totally.
And we're going to get some. We saw it in the trailer. We saw clips from that sequence in the trailer. And I'm like, man, color me stoked. Because I can't wait. And how we're going to. Apocalypse has to play a big part of this in this movie. I mean, I know Steppenwolf is a villain, but if they're going to talk about parademons and mother boxes, the fourth world is on the horizon, son.
You're going to have to go to Apocalypse, possibly New Genesis, possibly Orion. All these characters that I never thought in a million years you'd see are now literally just a day away from showing up at Entertainment Weekly. They were like, oh, this person's playing Orion. You're like, holy crap.
Right, which
know?
I never thought. Again, I never thought there would ever be an Avengers movie. If someone said, you know, not only is there going to be an Avengers movie, but there's going to be Captain America, Iron Man, Thor movies, I'd be like, psh, Pshaw.
That's right.
That's
Right.
never gonna happen.
There
Right.
was a time a decade ago where a huge universe of all these heroes coming together. I'm like, that's an impossibility. Like Batman and Superman's pushing it when they were showing that in they
I
had
Am
the-
I am
Legend?
Legend.
Yeah, I Am Legend. You see the banner, you're like, nah, it probably won't happen because that's too hard. And then the Avengers Initiative, I was like, this is going to fall on his face. And then here we are, a world where it's like, not having a universe is weird. you
Yeah.
know? It's
Not
Right, well,
having
yeah,
a
it's-
shared universe is like, that's kind of weird. Is it a standalone? That's odd.
I mean, Universal's like, not only do they have, they've got the Universal monsters are now coming back. They've got Godzilla and King Kong are coming with
Bride of
Mothra and
Frankenstein,
Ghidorah.
the Mummy.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's just, and everybody talks about we're going to have a shared universe. I mean, Hasbro wants to put G.I. Joe and Masks and Transformers all together. Like,
Right,
I
Mask would be
kind of
amazing.
don't mind that idea.
G.I. Joe and Transformers.
That makes sense.
That's a formula that works. When you look at like the first Transformers movie, which was kind of a version of G.I. Joe with
Yeah.
Transformers, they just called them something else.
Yeah.
But I think that's one that could work.
I think so. You know, you mentioned Lord of the Rings, and that's one of my deepest disappointments. I know it's not in the book, but seeing Sauron in his armor, like just knocking people across, I was like, I can't wait to see that again. Never. Well, it's just a giant eye. For
until
the
the
rest
Hobbit
of
movies.
I know.
And
But
that was a
anyway,
different disappointment.
let's move on. We got the minor mutations hitting right now. I'm going to list off a bunch of stuff, and we're going to talk about it. Number one, we got James Gunn. Would love to make a Star Wars holiday special for the Guardians of the Galaxy. I don't know what you guys think about that. I think that's a great idea. Maybe. Number two, we've got Jason Momoa reveals Orm is indeed the king of Atlantis. Number three, we've got Gotham series is returning with a brand new trailer with a skilled Bruce Wayne. Number four, we've got Joe Quesada does some badass posters for Netflix Defenders and The Punisher. Number five, we've got Logan Marshall Green. Is he also a shocker in Spider-Man Homecoming? Finally, we got Sylvester Stallone's Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 characters finally revealed. That's right, he's playing Starhawk, one of the original Guardians of the Galaxy. Now that is some crazy madness. What pops off to you, Jeremy?
Well, James Gunn doing a Star Wars holiday special for Guardians of the Galaxy. I can't. I've seen the Star Wars holiday special. I can't. So I'm gonna say no. No to that. The biggest thing in here that jumps out to me is Orm being the king of Atlantis because that didn't happen without some form of conflict. So is this for the Aquaman movie or the Justice League movie that this is happening in?
Ooh.
Like, do we know?
I believe
because
my guess is it's in the Aquaman movie, but they might touch on it because Zack
They'll
Snyder
probably touch
is
on it.
friends with that actor who's playing Orm. He was Night Owl. So.
Right. So I'd like to think that in one of the movies we're going to see how it happens. If it's in Justice League where it's like, hey, my brother's king of Atlantis, then in Aquaman I'd like to see how that happens because I feel like that's a whole movie of getting Orm on the throne. But however it happened, if we're there now, that really makes Arthur Curry a man in between worlds. He's like, I have no real place. And most of the Atlanteans hate me and see me as some sort of traitor to their ways. The Earth people, I guess I can help them out. But even then, I don't really feel accepted there. So, I mean, that's the great tragedy of Aquaman is he's a man in between worlds. So it does start us off in an interesting place. Other than that, I mean, the fact that we have Punisher, Defenders is interesting, but after I saw Daredevil season 2, I'm like, okay, let's get on that Punisher thing.
Yeah.
So that's the thing I'm really looking forward to. I want more about Daredevil season 3, but there's so much stuff happening that
Right.
we're not getting that necessarily.
The last I heard about Daredevil season 3 is they're going to start. They're starting it. They've got a writer's room. Cox is like, I'm ready to do it. We're gonna get into production, but first they got to play Defenders. We have to see the Defenders. Which Daredevil's going to be a part of? John, what pops off to you?
Well, so with Ocean Master or Orm, I'm not quite sure what the history of that was in the original comics, but in the New 52 comics, Orm, Arthur was just absent.
Right.
And so Orm was the king. So there was no conflict to Orm becoming king. He just was king. It became a little bit of a different issue once Arthur came back and said, hey, I'm back. So that became a little bit, it's going to be interesting to see how they portray Orm and all that kind of stuff. The Gotham series is interesting. Gotham was a series that season 1 did not impress me, but it was good enough that all right, I'll watch the next episode. And then it was just good enough that, okay, I'll watch the next episode. Season 2 was a big step forward to me. I thought season 2 was a big improvement. And then I gave up about 3 episodes into season 3. Season 3 did not. So I don't know if the second half of season 3 was better, but I gave up on it. So I haven't watched the new promo material for 4. If it catches my attention, I might force myself to go back and finish season 3 so I can get on board with it again. But that's where I'm at with that.
All right, now let me go back. I'm going to eat my words a little bit because I was hating on Gotham when they first, even before it even showed up. I was like, what is this Gotham without Batman bullshit? I refused to watch it. It was baby Bruce Wayne. Get lost. You know? I remember you were watching it. You were Schnepp, you should watch it. It's pretty fun. Then season 2, as Commissioner Gordon's got a bigger role in it.
Yeah.
You were like, it's a pretty good story. I'm like, F it. I'm not watching it. I will never watch a show called Gotham with the Penguin in it without the Batman.
As your main character.
As,
You're
yeah, as the
in a
main,
sense.
main character. You got who else is going to show up? Scarecrow and the Riddler? Yes. Without Batman. So it was annoying me. Then they got that character who was like a prototype Joker, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And then I was like, I liked the character, the way they were portraying him. And he dies. Spoilers. In season 3, you should have watched it. This was like a couple of years ago. So
Season 2.
Season 2 even. Jeez. All right. So anyway, season 4 rolls around and all the sweaties are like, yo, Schnepp, you gotta watch season whatever this
think it
last
was
one was.
3 was the
Season
last one.
Like where this new version of the Joker kind of gets reconstituted in such a way. I won't ruin any of that, but he kind of comes back. So I went back and I watched those, and I watched the last 10 episodes
Oh, you did?
of
I
Gotham,
haven't seen those.
and I thought they were fantastic.
Really?
I
Oh, well,
literally
maybe I'll have to give them a shot.
I literally watched the last 5 in a row where I was like, oh my God, I can't believe that I'm enjoying Gotham without Batman in it. But because they've introduced the Court of Owls, because they've introduced a lot of these other story themes that are woven into the Batman mythology, and that the young Bruce Wayne is slowly becoming the detective who will then become Batman, I finally see, like, maybe in this Gotham it will not end like Smallville, where the very last shot is Clark Kent becoming Superman. Oh, we're done.
This is a young kid.
This is a young
This
kid.
is a very
but
young kid.
They have the chance to possibly do some adaptations in season 5 of year 1, where it's him going out on the streets.
Well,
I
they'd
mean,
have to skip. They'd have to go like from season 4, and then the season premiere season 5. It has to be 7 years later. I mean, they'd have to, because this kid is young. I mean, he's really
But
young.
look at it this way: he was young when they started, and now they're in their 4th season. He was 12. Now he's 16, going on 17. So if they make it to season
I am
5,
16,
he
going on
could
17.
very possibly do this. I don't know. I was shocked to see how much I liked what they're doing with Gotham, and also the whole Jason Momoa revealing King Orm.
Right.
Is really like kind of a conglom of a lot of Aquaman stories. It's a little bit of Jeff Johns' recent stuff. It's a little bit of old school Aquaman. What are your thoughts? What popped off to you, Robert?
Well, how do you do a holiday special without B. Arthur? That's kind of what I was
Or
thinking.
Harvey Korman, dude.
Or Harvey Korman. And that's, I was like, wait a minute, you can't, that's not going to work. But I do think if they did a holiday special, they took the idea, it could be, with those characters, it could be really funny.
Yep.
I don't want to see somebody speaking in Wookiee grunts
For
the
15
first,
minutes.
Yeah, I don't need that. But I think it could be kind of neat. And there's already a Guardians of the Galaxy animated series, so
Right.
you're not going to have a new character introduced.
But
like
hang
Boba
on a
Fett.
second. Now that you've said it, why not, if James Gunn is truly going to make a Star Wars holiday special called the Guardians of the Galaxy holiday special, why not have it start with 15 minutes of a weird alien grunting and communicating? Like, you could be on an alien planet. Maybe it's the planet of Groots, and it's just every single one of the Groot family is just, I am Groot. I am Groot. Now, that would be insane, and we'd go crazy after 15 minutes, or would it be the most amazing 15 minutes of television ever?
It would be the most expensive trolling I've seen yet.
I want to see this more than ever now. James Gunn, please make this Guardians of the Galaxy holiday special. I think that's a great idea. Speaking of Guardians, Sylvester Stallone playing Starhawk is fantastic. Without saying anything about the movie that I've seen, and so that I could tell you that, yes, he is Starhawk because it's been announced. I'm not spoiling anything. You're reading that. It's been a press release.
That excites me. I mean, I have to say that's one of the most exciting.
Let's just say, without spoiling anything, it's really exciting because if you introduce Starhawk, what else is going to be introduced? Let's move on before I say too much. Guess what? It's Twitter questions.
I was getting ready to hit you over the head with the knock you out with the base of the
I'm gonna
mic
get
stand.
bonked with a microphone.
Someone quick, get the blow darts.
Silence him! Silence him! It's a live show. Check it out. We're live. It's Twitter. If you are online right now, go online. I know there's a couple thousand people watching right now. just write with the hashtag Collider Heroes. Get us a question. I'm going to rock through our questions that we have right now, and I'll try to answer some live questions. Number one, we got James Meller. Asked Collider Heroes, if Universal made a Hulk movie connected to the MCU, could they use Hugo Weaving as Red Skull and count it towards his MCU contract? Well, James, unfortunately, Hugo Weaving does not want to return as the character Red Skull in anything Marvel. He's giving them a real hard time even returning into the Captain America franchise to be Red Skull. So I don't know if Red Skull returns, if he'll be portrayed by Hugo Weaving. What do you guys think? Robert, I'll start with you.
I would say probably not. But yeah, I mean, yes, if they did a Hulk movie at Universal, he could be the Red Skull. And I don't know what his contract stipulates, but maybe he could be, you know.
Well, the answer to all this is no for a lot of different reasons. First of all, understand this. Hugo Weaving doesn't want to come back and play Red Skull, but Hugo Weaving himself has acknowledged if Marvel gets him on the phone and says, you got to come in next year and play Red Skull, he's got no choice. He has to. He's under contract. I just think Marvel's going to respect the fact that he doesn't want to do it, but if they wanted to, they could. The bigger part of the question here, though, is if Universal made a Hulk movie, Universal does not have the rights to the Hulk. There are two different sets of rights. There's film production rights, there's film distribution rights. Now, when people hear that Universal still kind of has some of the rights in a way, it has nothing to do with production. Universal has no rights to make any kind of Hulk movie or anything involving the Hulk. What they do have some rights to is distribution. So, if Marvel makes a movie called The Hulk, Universal has some rights to be the distributor for that, which is one of the reasons why Marvel isn't making a Hulk film, because they like to distribute their own films now. But as of this point, Universal they have no more rights to make a Hulk movie than I do. They have no right to do it, so there can never be a Universal Hulk movie.
I'm going to do a Hulk fan film just to really throw that under the bus. Boom, you can do a Hulk movie.
You should have a conversation with Robert Meyer Burnett about that before you do it.
Oh, no, I'm staying away from fan films.
And then we're going to chuck Hugo Weaving in as the Red Skull.
Right.
But you really do bring up a point. Like, one of the best things a studio can do is if you have a contract that says, hey, this person needs to be in X amount of appearances and that person doesn't want to, I think the best thing they can do is respect that person's wishes, contract aside, and be like, all right, you kind of don't want to, cool, because then they could work with them later on because like, hey, you respected my stuff, all right, I'll work with you, we'll see what happens. But right now, I don't think he's coming back.
Isn't that a slippery slope, though, if you do that? Because just think of it that way. Because if you say it that way, that, hey, yeah, we have a contract, but if the actor doesn't want it, that's fine. Shouldn't it then go the other way that, you know, I have a contract with the studio, if they do your movie, you're supposed to pay me $10 million, but they only want to pay me $5. Okay, fine, then just pay me $5, and we'll go. Like, you got to be a little bit careful with how flexible. But I think you're right. It is smart. If he really doesn't want to come back and do it, and your plans don't insistently need to have Red Skull in the next movie, then you're right. It's probably the right move to just let him go on.
Yeah, I would suspect that, you know, if they do have a contract with him stating, you know, and I'm sure they do, you have to be Red Skull again, they could get all legal on him and he could show up and give the worst performance of his life on purpose. So,
but Hugo Weaving's a pro.
He would do
he would like fight his genetic structure. Like, I can't be a bad actor.
I know. It would be almost impossible. Let's go on to the next one. Unless anybody else have anything to add about the Hulk and Red Skull?
He's dead.
Yeah.
Red Skull died.
He's not
probably
dead. He's not dead.
He's gonna remember, someone must hold the cosmic cube.
Right, I know.
So Josh Haynes is our next guy. He asks, Sam Neill was cast a while back in Thor Ragnarok. Who could he be playing? The leader? Surtur? Well, I like the way you think, because Sam Neill has a great voice. I don't know if they're going to give Surtur a voice, but if he has a voice, I'd love it to be the voice of Sam Neill. What do you guys think about Sam Neill in Thor Ragnarok? Let's start with you, Robert.
I don't think he's doing just a voice because he is Sam Neill.
Right.
You know, he's Damien. He's the Jurassic Park. Everyone knows him from Jurassic Park. You can't not show his face.
Robert? Sorry, John.
Yeah, look, you were just saying, like, Hugo Weaving, it would have to go against every bit of his genetic coding to not be a great actor. Sam Neill is one of the great actors of our age. He's fantastic in everything he's in. To have him in a movie and not have him in the movie seems odd. Now, we live in an age where multi-Academy Award nominated actor Bradley Cooper is doing the voice of a raccoon. So anything is possible, I suppose.
Benedict Cumberbatch doing Smaug.
That's right.
Yeah.
Jeremy?
That is true. But with Sam Neill, I feel like he has the kind of voice where it's recognizable, but his voice and his face would be the best move, I think, but you guys make good points where it's like Bradley Cooper's the raccoon. This is like one of the most attractive humans in film, and he's a raccoon. So who knows what's going to happen? But, I mean, you'd probably know who he's playing more than I do, Schnepp.
I got a sweaty guess. He's going to be the High Evolutionary. Look it up, sweaties. All right, Better Call Maul.
That's great casting.
I know, baby, you know it. Better Call Maul asks, since Inhumans is opening theatrically on 9/1 against 2 low-budget films, could it top the weekend box office? It's a good question, Maul.
Yeah. What's coming out?
I don't know what's coming out on September 1st, but I think Inhumans has a good chance of kicking that money, not only because it's coming out in IMAX, but it all depends on when we see the trailers for the Inhumans and if we react to it. It feels like a low budget, kind of like run-of-the-mill, made-for-television trailer, then we're probably going to be like, well, it's going to be on TV in the next couple of weeks. Or is it if they actually play up the IMAX factor of it and show big, amazing scenes? The Inhumans are on the moon. I want to see a big, giant vista of the moon or them from the moon looking at Earth. There's a lot of stuff they could play up. What do you think, Jeremy?
Yeah, it all depends on what trailer we watch and where we watch it. Are we going to get theatrical trailers in movie theaters? Because that would change the perspective of it, change the perception of it. I mean, if you just watched on YouTube, again, going to reach a lot of people, but you're still seeing it on a small screen. I think if they actually take the leap, release a trailer that doesn't look like a made-for-TV movie, but actually looks like a theatrical movie, and even in IMAX, like, hey, here it is in IMAX scope.
Right.
It could stand a chance, but also it's all about what it's going up against. So, a lot of variables.
Definitely, Robert.
Well, there's not enough IMAX theaters in the United States in order to put a film like that or 2 episodes of a show over the top. You know, you can't. There's 350 IMAX venues tops or something like that. So even if it was the #1 film, it would have to do a heck of a lot of business in that smaller number of venues to be the #1 film at the box office.
John?
No. I mean, look, let's keep this in mind here, too, that one of the first movies or television shows ever to do like a premiere of its season or whatever theatrically was Game of Thrones.
Right.
Which I think we'll all agree is infinitely more popular than what this Inhumans TV show. Infinitely more popular than any TV show. That's not a knock on Inhumans, not at all. Anybody want to take a guess what it made at the box office when it did that?
7 million?
2.
Ooh.
Made about 2.
Really?
So I can't see an Inhumans thing doing much more. I mean, hey, maybe it'll beat Game of Thrones, but I can't see it cracking $10 million.
Can I just say, seeing Game of Thrones in the movie theaters was so awesome. We all went together.
Yeah.
It was like it was such a phenomenal experience because it was 2 episodes back to back. Was it transformed into IMAX? I can't remember.
I can't remember their process doing it, but the thing is, it's a show that is shot cinematically.
It's so beautiful.
So it looked gorgeous.
Yeah. So I would go see every single episode of Game of Thrones if it was projected in the movie theater. I'm just saying. You have my $5.
I would probably pay $10 each
Yeah.
week to go into a theater and see it there.
It would be very much worth it. All right, next question. Adelia Chamberlain asks, what do you think of the theory that the soul gem is Heimdall because his eyes are yellow and he can see souls? His eyes being yellow, it's the Marvel universe. Everybody has different colored eyes, but that he can see souls, that's pretty cool. I didn't really think about that. I mean, if you see the Thor Ragnarok trailer, that's not Bishop, that's Heimdall in there, like fighting a dude with a sword. What kind of sword is he holding? It looks like the same sword that Hela is holding. So I don't know what that sword, if that is indeed the sword of Ragnarok, they just miniaturize it. What's going on? I don't know. What do you think, John?
Well, first of all, it's an interesting theory because Heimdall they just allude to how powerful he is. Like even Loki's like, I can't go and fight that dude. I gotta just appeal to his sense of loyalty to the king. I mean, so obviously there's something to him that the only guy he seems to answer to is the High Father Odin. So I mean, there's something there. I do not recall anything cinematically that references Heimdall being able to see the souls. He can see across all of space and see anybody anywhere at any time. He's like the all-seeing eye. I don't recall them cinematically using him in that way, unless there was some vague reference in Ultron that I missed. But him being in possession of one of the Infinity Stones would explain a lot. So it's not a far-fetched theory.
Robert?
I like the idea. Plus, I mean, Idris Elba, since he was introduced as the character in the first Thor film, his stock's gone way up.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I'm a huge Pacific Rim fan, and
Got to watch Luther.
I mean, Luther is incredible.
The Wire.
And The Wire. I mean, yeah. So why not? I like that idea. I think it's kind of cool.
Yeah, I think sometimes in movies, shows, whatever, video games, I've seen it 100 times, where something is written, and you're right, I don't remember them saying, hey, he sees souls. I remember him being able to see a lot of things, but it doesn't say souls, but it doesn't not say souls. So if they want to write it in a way where it's like, oh, that's how he sees people, is that he sees souls, they could, because it's written vague enough. And so it does fit. I think it's interesting, and I'm actually really on board with that. That's an interesting take, to hide something so completely in front of everyone. The best place to hide sometimes is right out in front. So
would they have to kill him?
Probably.
To get the Infinity Stone out of him?
Yeah, probably.
There's a lot of people that have to die.
I don't like that idea, Delia.
No, I don't-
now that you've
no,
pitched
no.
Because
it.
in
I
order
want
for that
him to-
Infinity, we're already going to lose Vision. That thing's going to get ripped out of his skull
Oh,
and
yeah.
put into an Infinity Gauntlet.
Well, let's get away from this death topic. Jay Miller asks, what do you want to see in season 2 of Legion, my second favorite show right now? Well, Jay, I finally finished Legion myself just 2 days ago. Fantastic, trippy, weird series. Indeed, one of my favorite series ever. I mean, I thought it was fantastic. What are your thoughts, guys?
Have not seen Legion, so I'm the worst person to ask. It's one of those things where I like it when a show like that wraps up, so I can just binge it. A lot of times I see so much on a weekly basis. I'm like, what happened in this show? That's right. Or maybe I missed a couple weeks, and I'm like, dang it, do I need to go back and who's that person? So if I just binge it, I'm right there the entire time. Maybe Netflix has spoiled me, so I'll do that.
All right, John, I know it wasn't your cup of tea. I don't know. Did you return to it?
No, I did not. I was one of the people that I didn't like the first episode. I thought the last 10 minutes started to find its tracking a little bit. Now, I watched that episode with somebody who also hated it, but they went on to continue watching it, and they said, you got to pick back up with it because
Yes.
it really picks up and it gets really good. So I think now that the season's done, I'm probably going to binge it all in a weekend.
Can I implore you to watch it?
I will
Because
probably
is
binge
only
it all
8
on a weekend,
episodes,
yeah.
And I think that I agree. It's trippy and weird. It stays trippy and weird, but then you just get into it, and then it rewards you. It's like one of the best written and visualized series that I've seen in a very long time. I can't say much more than just hats off to the entire creative team who've made Legion. It's an incredibly intelligent series as well. So it's like everything you've done, please continue that with season 2, and we'll keep talking about it. Robert?
Oh, I love the show too, and I think it was a marvel that it actually. Well, can I say a marvel that it actually got on television
Yes.
at all? Because, like you had said, the first episode doesn't really tell you where or how weird the show actually gets, and it gets really, but in a cool way. You know, very much like it's very much of a mind-bending kind of a. Inception, weird. I don't know. There's a lot of stuff going on in the. If you haven't watched it, watch the show. But for season 2, the question is, where's it going to go for season 2? I have no idea.
Right. Well,
You know, that's they've teased things.
Well, there's a post-credit sequence, which we're not going to talk about, which is just as weird as the rest of the series. Let me just say this about, casting-wise, I think Aubrey Plaza is incredible in this series. And I never
is.
saw her full potential.
Well, I guess she
until-
comes back after the first episode.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean,
didn't know that. That's interesting.
There's a lot of characters who are in it throughout the entire series because they go through trips. It's a trippy, you go through time, go through space, go through years, go back and forth through time. Aubrey Plaza is really, one of the highlights of that series. I can't say enough about her. So definitely check out Legion if you haven't. Maybe if you were like John, you were like, it was a little too weird. It was like turned you off of the first or second episode. Power through it. It is a series that truly does reward you, especially if you're a comic book fan. There's a lot of cool sweaty elements that are X-Men related.
So where do you think it would go in season 2?
I'm not even going to conjecture because I want anybody who's watching our show to actually give it a shot. We will do a full Legion breakdown maybe in a month. Get on it, watch that series, and we'll do a special just to talk about that. Let's go to some of your live Twitter questions before we hit that sweaty question of the week. We got Elijah M. Turner asks, with Sony's standalone Venom, will we ever see the symbiote suit origin in the Marvel universe? Well, now, we've conjectured a little bit about Infinity War, all these characters all coming to this weird planet. Sounds a lot like Secret Wars or Contest of Champions. Could they have the Marvel Spidey get a weird suit and wear it for like a little bit, but it's not the Venom suit? What are your thoughts, John?
It sounds like something that if I was in the upper floor offices of Sony that I would not let happen. Like if if Sony really does have their own plans for Venom, you don't want to muddy the water at this point. So if I'm a guy at Sony, I'm not speaking as a fan. I'm saying if I was a guy at Sony and there was that proposal to me, I would shut it down because no, I'd say, no, we got our own plans for Venom. When we want the audience thinking of Venom, we want them thinking of our Venom. When we got them thinking about symbiotes, I want them thinking about ours. I would probably shut it down. So I can't see Sony letting that happen.
How about you, Jeremy?
Yeah, I think it's too early to have Peter Parker turn into Spider-Man. We just got a glimpse of him where he's getting his own first movie. If he gets the suit in the second movie and becomes Venom, I mean, he's going to kind of turn into a jerk in the second movie. And we haven't even gotten time to love this dude. So I think for now, let the Venom thing just kind of slide by. You have other arcs you can do, other very personal stories you can do with Peter Parker. So let Sony have Venom if they're going to do Venom sometime down the line. When, what is it, 3 movies that he's doing with Marvel and he's going back to Sony or something like that?
A total of 6, so 3 standalone Spider-Man films and 3 cameos, one of which he's already done Civil War.
Perfect. We get a trilogy of really seeing what this kid's up to. We get cameos to see, more Spider-Man. And then after that, have him kind of go the Venom route and then go a bit of a darker path. So I think that's a perfect business model. Don't do the thing where you just turn him into a jerk movie too.
Robert?
Well, yeah, the Venom storyline is a weird thing in that when Venom was introduced in the first Secret Wars, on the Beyonders battle planet, whatever that planet was, and then Venom has become sort of his own thing now. Venom is a character unto himself, or is it a he? I mean, it's a creature. Now, I don't think that Venom belongs necessarily in the MCU Spider-Man mythos the way it's presented. We saw Venom once on the big screen already. I don't think it's going to happen. And they're talking about making it an R-rated, dark, sci-fi, horror, alien-esque type of a thing. I could see it working well there.
I have to admit, look, I'm with everybody too about like the confusing of the two worlds and the concerns that I have with there being Spider-Man things in exclusively Sony movies and Spider-Man things in the Marvel movies. I'm all for that, but I will admit the description that I've heard, the one that you just repeated about a Venom film, I gotta admit, there's a part of me that's like, that would be a pretty badass Venom movie to see.
That's what I want to see. I mean, I don't.
Yeah, I'm not hating on that description. If they follow through with that description, I'll be there.
Because
to see
Marvel
it.
ain't going to give us an R-rated sci-fi horror film in a Venom movie.
Absolutely not. So we've got a question from James Thomas Bethia asking, will we ever see a Sandman movie? Well, James, I don't think we're actually going to see a Sandman movie, let alone we will see possibly an HBO 10-episode series of Sandman, followed by 10 more episodes, followed by 10 more episodes, followed by like all 75 episodes told as 1-hour storylines. That's the only way that anyone who's ever read Sandman should see Sandman. It should not be a movie series. I'm against it as being a movie. It should be a television series and told that way. Robert, I know you're a giant Sandman fan.
Sandman's my favorite comic book of all time. And because it's a comic book, it's about the act of storytelling. I think that we might see a Sandman. Right now, American Gods is on the cusp of premiering. Brian Fuller's adaptation of Neil Gaiman's book. By all accounts, it's fantastic. Everyone loves it. I could see Brian Fuller and Neil Gaiman teaming up to finally crack the Sandman idea. I mean, they've been trying to make that movie I've read versions of the script. They're terrible.
Yes.
You can't. The problem is the executives are trying to turn it into something it's not, and unless you're going to adapt the book as a TV show, it would never work.
John,
as a movie. Well, it was Joseph Gordon-Levitt, right? That was really, and Gaiman was on board, and they seemed to think that they had the movie puzzle solved. I mean, they both sounded really convinced that they had it, and for one reason or another, it fell off the rails. Whether it's because it was one of those bad scripts, or whether it's because they couldn't get the right people on board. Who knows? At some point, though, if you're the rights holder and you are really committed to getting Sandman, the story told in the visual medium, at some point you got to look at the other options, and maybe television is the best route to go.
Jeremy?
Yeah, you guys are going to feel really weird when that question was actually about Spider-Man's Sandman and not Neil Gaiman's Sandman. Will we see a Spider-Man villain spinoff? Probably not. Neil Gaiman's Sandman, it's not a superhero story at all, and so I do feel like a studio is probably like, well, superhero, it's not really that. It's a really cool story, but I do agree that television or a streaming service would be the way to go. That's a lot of story to tell. You and I got really nerdy about this when we were walking over to Panera or something like that. We were talking about how on earth could you do Sandman? Because the first movie would be like, I need my trinket. Then he gets his trinket, and it's like, see you next time. There's no real what on earth would happen.
You know what opens the possibilities here is what you were just talking about a little bit earlier. Legion. Legion is a film that you think there's no way you can do this on television stuff, but it has found an audience.
Right.
And even though I haven't seen it yet, I know that the audience has found it and they like it. And I think if that's working, I bet there are some people, executives going, well, maybe Sandman can.
Absolutely. I think, and that's why I was saying television or a streaming service is absolutely the way to go. I think, I don't want to use the word impossible. It's very unlikely it could work as a 2-hour movie.
No, and also Sandman's frequently a guest star of his own series. Like The Dream of a Thousand Cats is the only comic book I ever gave my mother. The entire issue is really about house cats and this conclave. All these cats leave one night and meet with this female cat that basically says, in Sandman.
Oh, it's a great one.
It's a great episode. I'd love to see somebody do that on TV, but and Sandman just takes the guise of another cat that a cat visits.
Right.
It's like, how do you do that?
Episodically.
Absolutely.
Episodically.
It's one episode that has nothing really to do with finding anything. It's this one, hey, this is the mythology of how we have what we know today and one element of what we know today.
And we know that every series loves to have those one-offs, like Breaking Bad had that, like, get that bug,
fly.
the fly one.
That Ryan Johnson directed.
Yes, and it was great. So we want to see Sandman as a TV series. Next question live comes from Wessiger, asks, will Marvel fans ever get monsters, vampires in the MCU? Dracula, Man-Thing, Werewolf by Night, etc. Boy, what a great question. I mean, Marvel did have, for a slight run in the 70s, some of the greatest monster comic books that were slightly superhero-esque. Werewolf by Night. That one introduced Moon Knight. I mean, you had Frankenstein. You had Man-Thing. All these characters. Morbius. All these monsters.
The living vampire.
Yeah. I would love to see someone do something with that, with the potential of the supernatural side of Marvel. Albeit, like, I don't know if they've already got their run on Netflix. I would like to see, Ghost Rider, all the supernatural characters kind of like they did. I can't remember what they were called. The
Midnight Suns.
Midnight Suns. Thank you so much. Robert, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, I think, the problem with these kinds of characters, like vampires, is that they've been done to death on TV. They've been done to death in the movies. And how do you do them? And look, the characters, we talk about Morbius, a living vampire. We've seen so many other incarnations of vampires and werewolves and things already that I don't know if they can be unique enough to be a part of the MCU. Like, how do you... The MCU characters are unique unto themselves. They're the Marvel staple characters, but they were riffs. The supernatural characters were riffs on other things,
right? Like
whether it's Mary Shelley's Frankenstein or the Frankenstein Universal movies. I mean, how do you make a Frankenstein in the MCU? The MCUs,
Son of Satan.
It's hard. I mean, it's a hard thing to do. I mean, I could see Werewolf by Night because that would fit into the same universe that Jessica Jones fits into,
right?
But I wouldn't see. I don't think you have him as a lead character.
John?
I just echo everything Robert said. It's a difficult proposition right now, and it really doesn't seem to fit into the DNA of what Marvel is trying to do with their stuff right now. Never say never. I just don't see it in the immediate future.
Right on.
Yeah, not a lot of people know that Dracula is a Marvel villain. It is true, he is.
True.
But yeah, you look at that, and once you introduce something like that, that mythology, it's now not only there from then on, but it was always there from then back. And so you'll look at the previous MCU movies, and you're like, where was that when that was going on? So it's a very, I think the Marvel, or not the Marvel, but the monster movies leave that to Universal, and we'll MCU with our superheroes.
I would still like to see Man-Thing shamble about somewhere and burn somebody.
But Man-Thing could, because that was that's unique.
Howard
that's
the Duck.
I could see Man-Thing in a Marvel movie.
All right, well, thanks for your live questions. We're going to do that now as a regular thing since we're rocking live. So next week, get prepared to send in some more awesome questions. We're going to end it with the sweaty question of the week, and that comes from John Sava. And he asks, will the average audience get confused between Thanos, Apocalypse, and Darkseid? And his artwork was great. It was basically all three of them with the glowing red eyes. It was like, yeah, they do kind of all look similar in a certain sense. Do you think there is a confusion of giant blue dudes in like just the regular audience where they're going to be like Thanos and Darkseid in particular have kind of a very much of a same kind of desire, like an anti-life equation of pure domination? evil overlords. What are your thoughts, Jeremy?
I feel like some grandma somewhere will be like, "Is that the one who tried to take out Superman?" No, grandma, this is the Avengers. You know, I mean, I'm sure that conversation will happen somewhere. That conversation will always happen. It happened with Rogue One. Like, is this the movie that's after? No, it's not. It's before the episode 4, grandma. So that you'll never truly get away from that.
Right.
But I think generally speaking, the general movie going audience will be completely fine. I don't think there's going to be this huge thing where it's like everything's compromised because people got confused. I don't think we're going to be there.
What do you think, John?
I think, look, while I myself have been guilty in the past of like going back a couple years now, is saying, hey, I think if they did this and this, it might confuse the audience. Like, for certainly, if you say if Sony has their own unique Spider-Man while there's an MCU Spider-Man, could that cause some confusion? But for the most part, I think when we ask the questions, could this, whatever it is, confuse the audience? I mean, well, it depends on how stupid you think the audience is. I mean, we were just in the Marvel offices, and we saw some great concept work for the upcoming Avengers movie of Thanos. He's a giant purple dude. He looks completely different than Apocalypse did, and I got a feeling that Darkseid is also going to look a lot. Are they big, brooding dudes with nihilistic kind of points of view? Sure, but the confusion stops there. Now, beyond that, to ask if the audience will get confused, it implies this. That even if somebody looks at two guys and like the grandma voice, wait a minute, is that the one who fought the X-Men? No, whether you're talking to your cousin. No, Rob, that's not the same guy who fought the X-Men. It's a different character. That they're going to go, I don't get it. I don't get it. And they're going to fall to the floor in a puddle of their own tears. And they're going to have like seizures because it's pretty simple. They look pretty different. They are completely different. They have completely different names. They're completely different movie franchises. I don't think, other than a momentary question from an unmovie watching buddy of yours going, hey, is that the same guy from there? Going, oh no, that guy's purple. That guy fights X-Men. Okay, cool. And then confusion's done. I don't think it's going to be an issue.
Robert?
Well, I mean, when you put Captain America and Superman next to one another, can you tell the difference?
Right.
I mean, you know, all these people, they all look alike to me. You know, I think it's really just a question of, you have to understand, like, how many international terrorists, like, does Hans Gruber look like your other favorite, Euro trash terrorist in whatever Taken movie you're looking at?
Right.
I mean, you can tell the difference between your Euro trash terrorists, can't you? I mean, I think no one's going to have a problem delineating between Darkseid, Thanos, and Apocalypse.
Wouldn't that be crazy if they debut, this is the new look for Darkseid? He looks just like Thanos. That would suck.
Somebody in the live chat is saying, wait a minute, Darkseid looks like Clayface. I'm confused.
And if your grandma is asking you about DC and Marvel movies, greatest grandma ever.
That's right. I'm trying to get hip. All right. Well, you've been watching Heroes episode 105. Let me thank the guests. Robert, where can people find you online?
As always, you can find me on Twitter at BurnettRM, or on Instagram at RMBurnett, or on Facebook at Robert Meyer Burnett.
Jeremy Jahns, where can people find you?
You can find me at Jeremy Jahns on YouTube, Twitter, rest of the internet. You can find my show Awesome-tacular on Go90. It's a lot of fun, Schnepp and I. If you thought we got sweaty here, we get super nerd sweaty at the comic book store. Be there for that.
John Campea.
You guys follow me on Facebook and on Twitter, simply at Jon Campea.
And you can find me on Instagram and Twitter, just at Jon Schnepp. Check out Slayer #2. It's at comic book stores everywhere. I'll see you next week for episode 106.
Hey guys, if you like this video, click the thumbs up button. Also, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. It'll help you stay up to date with everything we've got going on here at Collider.